was February 9th, 1994, and Kurt Cobain was sitting in the back of a yellow taxi at SeaTac Airport at 11:47 p.m., trying to disappear into the worn leather seat. He'd just flown in from New York, exhausted from 3 days of label meetings that felt more like interrogations. His hair hung in greasy strings across his face, his oversized cardigan had a coffee stain on the sleeve, and he was wearing the same ripped jeans he'd slept in on the plane. The taxi driver, a 58-year-old man named Ray Martinez, glanced in the rearview mirror as his passenger climbed in. Another musician, Ray thought. Seattle was full of them these days. "Where to?" Ray asked, his voice carrying the rough edges of someone who'd been driving night shifts for 20 years. "Downtown, the Sorrento Hotel," Kurt mumbled, pressing his forehead against the cold window. Ray pulled away from the curb and merged onto the highway. The road was nearly empty, just scattered headlights and the glow of Seattle in the distance. For the first few minutes, neither man spoke. But Ray Martinez wasn't someone who did well with silence. "You play music?" Ray asked, nodding toward the guitar case squeezed into the back seat. Kurt opened one eye. "Yeah, sometimes." "Figured. You got that look." Ray chuckled. "I can spot you musician types a mile away, the clothes, the hair, the way you hold yourself like the whole world's trying to break you." Kurt almost smiled despite himself. "That obvious?" "Every time," Ray said. "So what kind of music, grunge? That's what all you kids are playing these days, right? After that Nirvana thing blew up, and everybody thinks they're going to be the next big thing." Kurt shifted in his seat, pulling his cardigan tighter. "Something like that." "You got a band?" Ray asked. "Yeah, we play around." "Signed to a label?" Kurt hesitated. "We've done some recording." Ray shook his head, that knowing look of someone who'd heard it all before. "Let me guess. You're working some dead-end job during the day, playing clubs at night, hoping somebody important shows up and discovers you." "Not exactly," Kurt said quietly. "Look, kid, I'm not trying to be a downer," Ray continued, his voice taking on a fatherly tone. "But I've had hundreds of musicians in this cab, hundreds, and you know how many actually made it? I mean, really made it? How many? Maybe 3 out of hundreds." Ray merged into the right lane. "And those 3? They stayed humble. They didn't quit their day jobs thinking they were special." Kurt stared out the window at the lights of Boeing Field passing by. If only Ray knew. "The problem with you kids today," Ray continued, "is you think talent is enough, but it doesn't work like that. You need to be smart, get an education, have a backup plan." "What if music is the backup plan?" Kurt asked, a hint of irony in his voice that Ray completely missed. "Then you're already in trouble." Ray laughed. "I've seen it too many times. Guy thinks he's going to be the next Eddie Vedder or that Cobain kid from Nirvana, and 5 years later, he's still playing dive bars, wondering where it all went wrong." Kurt felt something strange happening. He should have been annoyed. But instead, he felt oddly comforted by Ray's complete lack of recognition. Although for the first time in months, someone was talking to him like he was just a person. "You know what happened to that Nirvana guy?" Ray asked. "Kurt Cobain? Perfect example of what I'm talking about." Kurt sat up slightly. "What about him?" "Kid got famous too fast, wasn't ready for it. Now look at him, married to that Courtney Love woman, doing drugs, falling apart in front of the whole world." Ray shook his head. "That's what happens when success comes before you're mature enough to handle it." Kurt felt his throat tighten. Maybe he had those problems before the fame. "Maybe," Ray conceded, "but fame made it worse. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to a musician is not making it big. You know why?" "Why?" "Because you get to keep your soul." Ray's eyes met Kurt's in the rearview mirror. "You get to make music because you love it, not because some record label is breathing down your neck. You get to stay true to yourself." They were passing through Georgetown now, the industrial neighborhood giving way to city lights. Kurt watched the familiar streets roll by, each one holding memories of a Seattle that felt like it belonged to someone else. "Can I tell you something?" Ray asked, his voice softer now. "Sure." "I used to play music too, piano. Wanted to be a jazz musician when I was your age. Got offered a spot in a touring band when I was 23. "What happened?" Kurt asked, genuinely curious. I turned it down. Ray smiled at the memory. Married my high school sweetheart instead. Got a regular job, started driving this cab, had 3 kids. And you know what? I've never regretted it. Not once. You never wondered what might have been? Sure, I wondered. But wondering isn't the same as regretting. Ray turned onto First Avenue. I still play piano, you know, every Sunday at my church. Small congregation, maybe 30 people. When I'm playing for them, I feel the same joy I felt at 23 dreaming of Carnegie Hall. Maybe more, because I'm not chasing anything. I'm just playing. There was something in Ray's voice that made Kurt lean forward slightly. What made you choose that, in that moment when you had to decide? Ray was quiet for a moment, his hands steady on the wheel. The band leader called me on a Tuesday, said they were leaving Friday, needed an answer by Wednesday. I went home, and my girlfriend Maria, she was making dinner. Just spaghetti, nothing fancy. Well, and I watched her singing to herself while she stirred the sauce, completely happy in that little moment. That's when I knew. Knew what? That I already had everything I needed. The touring life, it would have given me stages and strangers cheering, but I would have lost the girls singing in my kitchen. I would have missed my son's first word, my daughter's first day of school. And for what? Applause from people who don't know my middle name? Kurt felt something break loose inside him. Here was a man who'd walked away from music and found peace. Meanwhile, Kurt had achieved everything Ray had dreamed of and felt like he was drowning. What's your name, kid? Ray asked suddenly. Kurt hesitated. Chris, he lied, using his middle name. Well, Chris, you seem like a good kid, smart, sensitive. That's going to work against you in the music business. They eat sensitive people alive. I'm learning that, Kurt said quietly. Here's what I'm going to tell you, Ray said, pulling onto Fifth Avenue. Whatever you do, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. If you're chasing fame or money or trying to prove something, you're going to end up miserable. But if you're doing it because it makes you feel alive, then you've already won, whether you play arenas or coffee shops. They were approaching the Sorrento Hotel now. Kurt felt a strange reluctance for this ride to end. You married Chris? Ray asked. Yeah. Kids? A daughter. She's almost 2. Ray's face softened. That right there, that's what matters. Not the music, not the career. That little girl doesn't care if you're famous. She just wants her daddy. Kurt felt tears sting his eyes. He thought about Frances, her little hands reaching for him, the way she laughed when he made silly voices. Ray was right. My oldest daughter, she's 32 now, Ray continued. Got 2 kids of her own, and you know what she tells people when they ask about me? She doesn't say, my dad's a taxi driver. She says, my dad's the guy who taught me to play piano, the guy who never missed my school plays. That's success, kid, not platinum records. The taxi pulled up in front of the hotel. Kurt sat there, not moving. How much do I owe you? Ray glanced at the meter. $42.50. Kurt pulled out his wallet and handed Ray 3 20s. Keep the change. That's too much. It's not. Kurt grabbed his guitar case and started to open the door, then stopped. Ray, can I ask you something? Shoot. If you could go back, would you take that touring gig? Would you choose music over everything else? Ray was quiet for a long moment. You know what? I don't think I would, because choosing music would have meant not choosing my wife, not being there when my kids were born, missing first steps in school plays. Music would have given me stages and applause, but it wouldn't have given me Sunday mornings with my granddaughter. It wouldn't have given me 40 years with the woman I love. So no, kid, I wouldn't change a thing. Kurt nodded, not trusting himself to speak. You gonna be okay? Ray asked, something in his voice suggesting he saw more than he'd let on. I don't know, Kurt admitted. I really don't know. That's honest, at least. Ray smiled. Whatever you're going through, but remember this, the music doesn't own you. You own it. Don't let it eat you alive just because other people decided you're supposed to be something you're not ready to be. Kurt climbed out and leaned down to the window. Thanks, Ray, for everything. Good luck, Chris. Play from the heart. That's where the real music lives. As the taxi pulled away, Kurt stood on the sidewalk watching the yellow cab disappear into Seattle's late-night traffic. He thought about what Ray had said, about choosing family over fame, about playing for 30 people in a church and finding more joy than playing for 30,000 in an arena. Kurt walked into the hotel lobby, and immediately the night clerk's eyes went wide. "Oh my God, Mr. Cobain, we're so honored to have you." Just like that, the bubble burst. He wasn't Chris anymore. He was Kurt Cobain. In his room, Kurt pulled out the notebook he always carried. He started writing, the conversation with Ray pouring onto the page. Ray had talked to him like he was just another struggling musician, because that's what Kurt still felt like inside. The fame, the money, none of it had changed the fundamental uncertainty he felt about his place in the world. He wrote, "Ray chose the girl singing in the kitchen over Carnegie Hall. I chose the stage and lost everything that mattered. Francis is growing up with a father who's always leaving. Courtney is married to someone who's barely present even when he's home. What am I chasing? What am I running from?" Kurt thought about the moment Ray described, coming home to Maria singing while making spaghetti. Such a simple moment. Would Kurt tried to remember the last time he'd felt that kind of uncomplicated happiness, before Nevermind exploded, before the world decided who he was supposed to be, before the music he made in his bedroom became something the whole world wanted to dissect and own. He kept writing. "Ray plays for 30 people every Sunday and calls himself lucky. I played Saturday Night Live and wanted to crawl out of my skin. What's broken in me that I can't find joy in any of this?" The next morning, Kurt called his manager. "I need you to find someone for me. A taxi driver named Ray Martinez, night shift from SeaTac." "Why?" "Just find him." It took 2 days, but they tracked down Ray Martinez. Kurt had a brand new piano delivered to Ray's church, a beautiful, grand piano. The card read, "For the guy who chose the right path, and keep playing from the heart. Chris." Ray called every taxi company trying to track down the passenger who'd sent the piano. When he finally connected the dots, when he realized Chris had been Kurt Cobain, he sat down and cried. Not because of the piano, but because he'd given fatherly advice to someone who desperately needed it and didn't even know it. When Kurt died 2 months later, Ray Martinez sat in his cab and wept. He kept thinking about that ride, about the questions Kurt had asked, about how lost he'd seemed despite having everything the world said should make a person happy. In one of Kurt's final journal entries, he wrote about that taxi ride. "Met a guy who walked away from music and found peace. I achieved everything he dreamed of and lost myself. What does that say about dreams?" Years later, when Ray Martinez was interviewed about that night, he said something that stuck with people. "Kurt taught the world about alienation through his music. But that night in my taxi, he was just a kid looking for answers from a stranger. The saddest part is, I had the answers. I told him exactly what he needed to hear. But knowing the answers and being able to live them are two different things." The piano still sits in the same church in Seattle. Every Sunday before he plays it, Ray says a quiet prayer for the kid who just wanted 40 minutes of being nobody special. Sometimes, between songs, Ray tells his congregation about that night. Not to glorify himself, but to remind them that everyone they meet is fighting battles they can't see, that the stranger in your taxi, the person in line behind you at the grocery store, mom, the quiet kid at the end of the bar, they might be carrying weight that would crush most people. "I gave Kurt Cobain advice about staying humble and getting a backup plan," Ray says with a sad smile. "I had no idea I was talking to one of the most famous musicians in the world, but that's the thing. Fame didn't protect him. Success didn't save him. He needed the same thing we all need, to be seen, to be heard, to matter to someone beyond what we can produce or perform."